Well, it's been a few weeks since my last podcast. I try to do these every 3 weeks or so, but I think it's been about a month since the last one I put out, maybe a little bit over. There's been a few things going on in the world, and so I have been trying to stay focused, been trying to stay busy, just like a lot of you out there, I'm sure, have done the same thing or trying to do the same thing. It's challenging, that's for sure. During the pandemic, there were all kinds of, well, I guess the pandemic is still going on depending on where you are in the world, but there were a lot of great ways to try to stay creative and stay busy. I tried to do my part to help. I gave away one of my courses, the Make a Movie in 20 Days course. I did that really early on. I think that was back in March. Didn't know how long everything was going to last. Right now I'm recording this in early June. But the pandemic has gone on a little bit longer than I originally thought. Although things are starting to get back to normal again in certain places in the world. Where I am in Texas, it's slowly getting back to normal. Well, normal is a whole nother word, maybe a new normal for right now. We're all still wearing masks and that kind of thing. But then, of course, we had this terrible event with George Floyd, just a tragic situation there that then, of course, brought protest, and then it turned violent and there was rioting, and that kind of spread all over the world. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And so, yeah, a lot going on in the world right now. And it's been one of those weird things where I mentioned hard to focus, but it's also hard to know if focusing on what you do for a living, in this case, filmmaking, is the right thing to do. You, of course, want to pay attention to the pandemic, and you, of course, want to pay attention to the protesters and to everything else going on in the world. And sometimes, I guess what I'm trying to say is what you do, and in this case, again, with me, filmmaking, it almost seems like it's not that important. But in reality, that's what I want to talk about today. It can be important. Hey guys, Blake Calhoun, and another episode of Almost Professional, the podcast about mobile filmmaking, indie filmmaking, DIY filmmaking, really all things filmmaking. And yeah, is filmmaking really that important? And especially as it relates to everything else going on in the world. And my answer is yes, I think it is important, and for a variety of reasons. First of all, of course, for a lot of us, this is how we make a living. This is what we depend on for our livelihoods. Now, if you're a hobbyist, that may not be the case, but that doesn't mean it's still not important to you. But in my case, it's important to pay the bills and feed my family. But I always say this, I would be a filmmaker whether I made money or not. And so if I didn't do this as a job, if I was an insurance salesman or whatever, I would still make films on the side. And so my passion is my profession, which I am very fortunate in that regard. I absolutely understand. And so it's important from an individual perspective because this is what I do. And in a lot of ways, this is my identity. It's who I am as a filmmaker. It's also important, especially during the pandemic, I think, to help keep you focused and help keep you positive and creative too. A lot of people I know were out of work or are out of work, myself included, as it relates to client work. My client work is all but gone. Not sure when that's going to come back. Again, some of it's slowly coming back, but not really nearly as fast as I would like it to or that we all need it to. In Texas and in California, I know the governors have said that film production can reopen either right now or in the next coming week. I can't remember exactly the dates, but lots of rules and regulations there, of course, until this pandemic subsides more. And looking at the numbers, I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But I think pursuing your passion, again, whether that's what you do for a living or whether it's what you do for a hobby, I think that's really important. I really do, not only for yourself, but to share that with other people. whether that's on YouTube or on your own website or on Vimeo or on Facebook or Twitter or wherever. I think making a positive difference in people's lives is good. Myself, I tend to be a filmmaker geared towards entertainment. There are, of course, filmmakers that do message movies, whether that's documentary or feature films. My movies tend to be more entertainment. I grew up watching 80s movies, and so I am a product of the Steven Spielberg type movies, E.T. or Back to the Future or Indiana Jones, those type of popcorn movies that are a lot of fun and entertaining. And yes, they have message or comments on society, but they're more subtle. And so that's the way my brain has always worked. I've always kind of geared my work towards escapism or entertainment. You go to the movies for 2 hours to escape the reality. Now, I like movies that are message movies, whether that's documentary again or narrative feature films or whatever. But right now, I think message type films can be very good and very positive. And I really like what Cassius Rayner has been doing. If you don't follow him, he is Go Film It, I believe is his Twitter handle. He's a British filmmaker. He does exclusively mobile filmmaking right now. He used to do more traditional stuff. But during the pandemic, he's been doing something really interesting, and that is documenting London. And he got some other guys from around the world to document their cities during this virus outbreak and to see what these cities have been like in almost a ghost town environment. And so using his smartphone and Filmic Pro, and again, other guys around the world that he contacted, they have created some really nice little short mini documentaries that are very emotional and very well done. And I really applaud him for doing that. Not only is he creating stuff that he likes to create, he's documenting the event, which will be great for archiving and for future. And at the same time, he is, in quotes, entertaining people. And I don't mean that that's entertaining what's going on. I just mean it's great that he is creating these films for people to watch and for people to hopefully get something out of. Ideally, learn something and see how this virus has affected people, again, all over the world. And that is unique to this virus and really to this whole circumstance. I've heard other people say this, how it really shows how small the world is. We're all connected. We really are. And that ties into all the protests going on about George Floyd. It, of course, started in Minneapolis, but it spread all over America. And it's really interesting seeing this same thing all over the world. And I think filmmaking and using your smartphone, of course, obviously can come into play there. Again, documenting, telling stories. I really think that is important. And especially, again, in the world we live in, where it's all social media and YouTube, and that can be good and bad, of course. So for me, I have been continuing to do my weekly YouTube uploads. I'm still reviewing gear, and I think that's the right thing to do. I really do, because while, again, the pandemic shut us all down and now we're all focusing on the protest, and I personally think that staying creative, staying productive, and producing positive material to, help and educate people is good. And so while it is hard to stay focused, I think it's valuable. And I think as filmmakers or video creators, it's important. It's important to share your stories, share whatever it is you're doing, but also to keep doing it. And as I titled this podcast, the show must go on. I really believe that. And right now, again, with this great technology we have in iPhones or Android phones or whatever phone you have, it doesn't have to be a phone, mirrorless cameras, that kind of thing. There's so many great ways to contribute and document and share stories right now with your devices that it's really a good time to be a filmmaker. It really is a good time to be a storyteller. There's never a bad time, I guess, but right now it's a really good time. So I would just really encourage everyone to keep doing what you're doing. Make your movies, make your films, make your YouTube videos, stay productive, stay creative. And don't forget to check out those videos by Cassius Rayner. I think it's called The World Falls Silent. Again, they shot all those on a smartphone, and I really think it's great what he did with that series. I really do. Okay, guys, well, I know this has been a little bit of a different episode, but I hope you enjoyed hearing my perspective. And just FYI, I've got some other interviews planned coming soon on this podcast, and so I think you'll enjoy those. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and keep telling your stories. Thank you very much for listening today. This has been another episode of Almost Professional. I'm your host, Blake Calhoun, and I will look forward to talking to you in the next episode.